For those who wonder about what the American West was like in the first part of the 19th century, Wyoming is a good approximation. For its size, the 10th largest state at nearly 98,000 square miles, it is the least densely populated. Less than 500,000 humans inhabit the state. It should then come as no surprise that Wyoming also has the lowest rate of asbestos-related deaths. Between 1980 and 2000, there were only 67 terminal victims of asbestos. These were roughly evenly divided between mesothelioma and asbestosis patients. Most of these were in Laramie County, home of Cheyenne and Laramie, and Natrona County, home of Casper. Nature's asbestos. According to the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry map of the U.S., asbestos deposits, Wyoming's naturally occurring serpentine deposits, the source of chrysotile asbestos, are oriented along two lines running northwest to southeast. One of these is along the Rock Mountains, approximately parallel to the Continental Divide. The other roughly follows the path of U.S. Interstates 25 and 90. Because the locations are areas that are sparsely populated, they pose little threat to human health. Wyoming's asbestos industries. Most industrial facilities in Wyoming are either power generating plants or oil refineries. Standard, Stouffer, Texaco, and Sinclair all operate oil refineries within the state's boundaries. Both of these are among the most dangerous kinds of job sites in terms of asbestos exposure. Oil refineries. Aside from the political and economic costs of petroleum, it is a highly volatile and toxic substance in all stages. Rock oil, or petroleum, is arguably a form of solar energy. It is derived from ancient sunlight captured by plants via the process of photosynthesis during the Paleozoic era, long before the dinosaurs. These plants died and subsequently went into the ground, where their remains were subject to geologic pressures which resulted in the carbon-based fuels that runs much of society today. The problem is that the energy that was originally stored in these plants has changed its form dramatically, and is from time that is hundreds of millions of years removed from the present. The result is a substance that is quite flammable and poisonous to the modern environment. The same properties that make petroleum an effective source of fuel are the same that make it so dangerous to work with. In order to protect workers from burn injuries, it was necessary to insulate much of the machinery and equipment used in oil refining with asbestos. The cost of this protection was made clear by a British study in 2003. The study followed the mortality rates of over 28,000 people who had worked at refineries in the refining department. This group suffered from significantly elevated mortality rates from mesothelioma and melanoma. Power plants are among the most hazardous job sites according to findings of a Puerto Rican study in the year 2003. In this study, over 1,100 workers who had more than 15 years' experience had chest x-rays taken and analyzed. 13% of the x-rays had abnormalities consistent with asbestos disease. Asbestos was used in any industry in which fire danger, corrosive chemicals, or electrocution was a concern. While these asbestos-containing materials, or ACMs, provide this protection admirably, the problem lies in the fact that they eventually start to break down and crumble into dust, releasing loose fibers into the environment. In this state, it is known as friable and causes serious health risks to anyone who is exposed. Legal resources in Wyoming. A search through the Wyoming Federal District Court cases for asbestos-related personal injury product liability lawsuits brings up no recent lawsuits. However, that does not mean that asbestos is not a concern in the state. Wyoming is ranked 47 in the U.S. for mesothelioma cases. With a mesothelioma mortality rate of 13.2 per million, Wyoming has a crude mortality rank of 20 in the country. In Wyoming, there are a number of known asbestos-exposed areas. These include the coal-fired power plant and the Gillette electric plant in Gillette, the Dave Johnson coal-fired power plant in Glen Rock, Wyoming Refining in Newcastle, the Jim Bridger power plant in Rock Springs, and the Sinclair oil refinery. Casper has 4 known asbestos-exposed areas: Little America Refining, Colorado Ute Power, the Standard Oil Refinery, and the Texaco Oil Refinery. Cheyenne has 3 known asbestos-exposed areas: the Husky Oil Refinery, Fort Francis E. Warren, and Frontier. Green River has 3 known asbestos-exposed areas: the Allied Chemical or Soda Ash Plant, the Coal-Fired Power Plant, and the Stouffer Chemical Plant. Individuals living or working near these areas should be checked regularly for signs of mesothelioma in order to file any lawsuits within the state's statute of limitations. While many of these sites have been inspected and some have been cleaned up, anyone who worked or lived in these areas before asbestos contamination was reported can still be affected. Also, it is important to keep in mind that these are only known asbestos sites. Other areas in the state may also contain asbestos, but may have not yet been reported as such. A key Wyoming asbestos case was Gregory A. Popick versus the State of Wyoming, Wyoming Worker Safety and Compensation Division. In 1978, Gregory Popick held 3 separate jobs in Wyoming in the course of which he may have been exposed to asbestos. In the 1990s, Popick began experiencing breathing difficulties. In 2001, Popick sought medical treatment and was told he had symptoms consistent with asbestosis. In 2002, the diagnosis was confirmed. In 2003, he filed 3 injury reports with the Wyoming Worker Safety and Compensation Division, claiming in each that his asbestosis was caused by his employment in Wyoming in 1978. The Worker Safety and Compensation Division, in turn, issued 3 responsive final determination letters denying coverage to him because, it said, he did not provide enough evidence of work-related asbestos exposure in Wyoming. He failed to file a claim for benefits within 1 year after being diagnosed or within 3 years after the date of last exposure. And he had not reported the injuries to his employers and the Wyoming Worker Safety and Compensation Division. After a district court upheld the denial of the claim, Popick filed an appeal to the Wyoming Supreme Court. The Supreme Court determined that Wyoming's laws require injured workers to report their injuries to their employers and the state and to file claims for benefits with the state, with both requirements subject to time limitations. The court also found that in cases involving latent diseases such as asbestosis, the time limit for filing the claim for benefits is determined by the law in effect at the time the claimant becomes aware of his condition. Since Popick waited for more than a year after his initial diagnosis of asbestosis to file his claims, Wyoming Supreme Court upheld the lower court's ruling to dismiss his claims. Those interested in filing lawsuits should know that the statute of limitations for personal injury law in Wyoming is 4 years with a discovery rule that states that this amount of time begins when the problem, in this case the mesothelioma, either was discovered or should have been discovered. Wrongful death cases are limited to a 2-year statute of limitations following the same discovery rule. There is no special statute for asbestos cases in Wyoming. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.net, information and help for patients and families.